What's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Perret. Today we have a really exciting episode with Michael Mazzella. This guy was special forces, got out of the army, stayed out here in Hawaii. He's done over 240 fix and flip properties here in Hawaii, not even including his passive income deals back in the mainland. And this guy won't flip a house unless he's making six figures. So you do the math. He's amazing. He was also a rich dad coach at one point. He runs the Honolulu Mentorship program out here. I mean, the guy's legendary. So the wisdom he spits in here is great. You got to check it out. Stay through all the way to the end because, I mean, it is just packed full of information. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining the community. This podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment. Show notes are found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast. Now relax and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Military Millionaire Podcast, a show about real estate investing for the working class. Stay tuned as we explore ways to help you improve your finances, build wealth through real estate, and become a person that is worth knowing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's David from Military to Millionaire. We have a really exciting episode today. I'm here with Michael Mazzella, who was Army Ranger, Army Infantry Officer, did a lot of fun stuff in the Army. He's going to tell us a little bit about. But the way that I know Michael is that he is one of, if not the biggest house flipper on the island of Oahu. Like, everybody knows this guy's name because he is out there just crushing it. And not only is he a big house flipper, he also runs my favorite real estate related event on the island, the mastermind event. And then he also runs a mentorship and a training program that my friend Jin that you're always seeing on my videos has gone through, and it's just awesome. So I'm super excited to be able to do this. Michael, welcome aboard.
Aloha, David, and thanks a lot for having me. I'm proud to be here on From Military to Millionaire. I think it's a great concept. I'm glad you're doing this, brother.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I've lived in Hawaii for 29 years. As of this year. When I came here, I was in the military. This was my last assignment was at Schofield Barracks.
Awesome.
And I've been out for about 20 years now. So, I haven't been recently in the military, but, as a very young man, a lot of who I am today was because of my time in the military. So I'm, very proud of my service. I have a lot of respect for you, David, and Jin, and all of the guys who are still serving. I think it's not an easy, thing to do with all the deployments that are happening. So thank you guys for your service. And like I said, I'm proud to be able to contribute something to your audience. I hope they can learn a lot. I've been flipping houses or really investing in real estate this is year 17. I've been doing this for 17 years. I've got, I'm right around, just right between a little over 240 deals under my belt. Most of them are, right here on Oahu, but I've also bought a bunch of houses on the U.S. mainland over the years too, to get some passive income going. So I love what I do. I think it's a privilege to, of all of the jobs in the world, I think I'm doing what's just about, number one or two. If you can't be a rock star, be a house flipper. And of all the places to do that, I can't think of any better place than, the most beautiful place on the planet, right here in Hawaii. So here I am, loving it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And the market here in Hawaii is just so unique, but it's really cool because you can go, anywhere in the island and you're either on a beach, overlooking a beach, or you've got the most awesome view of the mountains. And there's nothing bad here.
Right.
In fact, we were just talking, the house that you flipped recently in my neck of the woods, I got to see it, and the view from that overlooking all of Kailua was just breathtaking. So.
Yeah, it's there are little sub-markets and, with all the different neighborhoods. And that was a beautiful house. It was one of the, we built that one from the ground up. So it wasn't a flip, it was a mini development, which is a whole different thing than flipping a house. Development is a lot more complicated. There are a lot more hoops you have to jump through. It's not something that I recommend for beginners, although it's, talking about becoming a millionaire, you could literally do that in a single development project. So real estate is just an amazing, way to accomplish that mission, to go from military to millionaire.
It is. I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, would you mind walking us through one of your deals, one of your better ones, or one of your crazier ones, whatever?
There's so many of them that are crazy. Right now, I've got at this moment 25 houses in various states, of progress around the island. It tends to change from week to week, where we'll sell a couple, we'll put one or two more into escrow. And stuff like that. I just put one into escrow yesterday. It's on Prospect Street, which is kind of in town.
Yeah.
And it's off market. We're buying it for, I think, $375. I'll probably put about $200 into it to get it market ready, and then it should sell for about $850 to $900. When we're done. And we expect that process to take about 6 months. So this will require a couple of complexities that we usually encounter in about every deal that we do. In this case, we need to tie in the sewer line. So we're working with the neighbors to see if we can get their okay to do that into something that they've already got there, which will save us a lot of money. And we're in negotiations right now with neighbors, to do that. I'm offering to repave the driveway that all the neighbors are on. It's kind of coming apart, and I told I'll just do that at my expense, but let me tie into the sewer line. Now, if not, then we have to go out and do it out to the street, which will cost about 3 times as much. The other complexity in this one is that this is a 2-story house, and the upstairs is the design, the layout of that. The upstairs is it just makes no sense at all. There's no flow to it. You have to walk through one bedroom to get to the other half of the house. So we'll probably have to just gut it and start over. I'll bring in a designer and we'll lay out the whole thing and do it. So that's why the budget is about $200,000, whereas a typical flip, it's usually around $100,000. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that seems a little up there. I like that you mentioned, people talk negotiations, but instead of just saying that you're gonna, hey, can I hook up to your sewer line, that you're offering something that honestly, to me as a homeowner, having a nice new paved driveway or road sounds way more enticing than sewer lines.
Yeah, I think, we have to know what the other people want and then come to the table and provide that, or else we're just doing nothing more than asking, for someone to do us a favor, which they have no, reason. They may have no reason at all to do that. So we'll bring something of value to the table, and it gives us a little bit better position, right, to negotiate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I would be kind of curious to ask, since you are not only a very avid, obviously 25 pending houses around the island, a very avid house flipper, but also someone who actively teaches, what kind of advice would you give to anyone looking to get into the wholesale fix and flip type game? If there's anything that you could say for someone who's kind of just doesn't know where to start.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's actually a deeper question than that is on the surface, because if somebody starts going in the wrong direction, whether they're being led or doing it on their own, it's going to be really hard for them to recover. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that I advocate, for my students is do not start with creating passive income. Instead, I encourage people to start with the active appreciation type deals, what I call wealth creation. Right, so real estate provides wealth creation, but it also provides passive income, right? For which is the ticket for retirement, but it's not going to get you rich. And I think most people who jump into the game are taught like, well, go passive, start buying properties that'll cash flow in crappy markets, and they could do that, but they're not going to get rich. they'll get their, $300 a month with each property that they get, but they're not going to get wealthy that way. Whereas if, in our market right here, a lot of people don't realize you could flip one house and make a net, that's a pre-tax net of $100,000, which the median household income, David, on this island is about $66,000, $67,000. Now think about that for a minute. That's people who are working their butts off for a whole year before taxes hit them, right? And we're taxed very high, especially here in Hawaii. And with maybe a boss they don't like, a job that they're putting up with, traffic back and forth, to make $67,000 a year before taxes. Whereas in our business, in the same market, we flip one house, right? One house and net $100,000, a pre-tax net of $100,000. And I'm not saying that to be exciting. This is a fact. This is a fact. So a real estate investor who's starting out, who flips only 2 or 3 houses a year, is going to be in the top 5% of all income earners. And that's like the sledgehammer of logic, crashing on your head. When I first got into this business and made that discovery, one of the biggest things that I scratched my head over was, my goodness, why isn't everybody doing this? Yeah. And I've since come to learn, the reason is that a lot of people are not trigger pullers. A lot of people see their idea of safety is not in the, the entrepreneurial path, of taking risk and, getting out there and doing stuff on your own that could be scary, And that's why, if everybody could do this, it wouldn't be so special, so clearly it's, what we do is not for everybody, but, in a market like this, so you look at our market here in Honolulu, the Honolulu Metro, which is the island of Oahu, you do not have to crush it in this market. You don't have to crush it like me and a couple of others are doing. You could just do 2, 3 a year. Ask yourself this, and for your listeners, if you could make $100,000 on a single house flip, how many, deals do you need to do in a year for it to completely change your life?
Yeah.
I have doctors that come through, a bunch of them actually, in the past 2 years, doctors who have these are medical doctors who have come through my mentor course. One of them recently, became a friend of mine and told me that, I think I'm going to leave the medical profession to do this full time. And I said, no, wait, don't. We need doctors. We need doctors here. Don't do that. Just do it part time. You can double, triple your income just doing it part time. Yeah. But if you were a lawyer, I would say, yeah, good. We got too many lawyers here. But, so as you look at this market, David, this is not a good market for cash flowing properties.
No,
it's not a good market for that. So people looking for cash flow are going to have a hard time here. They're going to hit a wall pretty quickly. Now, that said, there are exceptions to it. I've got a few properties that are cash flowing here, but it's mostly vacation rentals, right? So if you get into some kind of niche like that, okay, you can make it work. If you do something super creative, yes. But for the most part, dollar for dollar, you're not going to do well here trying to cash flow something. You could take that same money and go somewhere else and make double or triple what you're going to make here. So when people tell me, yeah, I'm looking for properties that I can rent, I can hold and rent here in Oahu, the first thought that goes through my head is, okay, I think you need to get educated first, because if you're planning to do that, this is not the ideal market. And I could show you some numbers. In fact, remind me to do that later in the podcast, David. Give you some example, numbers on exactly that. But that said, so this may be a crappy market, this local market for cash flowing. It is an excellent market for wealth creation. And that's what I mean when I said, wealth creation. Flip a house, make $100,000, and then make double or triple your income just doing it part time. And that's what I mean when I said, wealth creation. And that's what I mean when I said, flip a house, make $100,000, and then make double or triple your income just doing it part time. You know, do a development project when you're ready and trained for that, you can make 800,000, on a single project. It could take 2 to 3 years to do that, but still. So this is a great wealth creation market. You talk about, becoming a millionaire. It's not a terribly big deal. This is a great way to do it. But so I encourage people again to focus on initially on the wealth creation. And then when you get more money than you need to live, now take some of that money and use that to invest in your passive and get some cash flow going. Does that make sense?
No, that makes awesome sense. I absolutely love the way you put the answer to why people don't do it. A lot of people are not trigger pullers. We hear the analysis paralysis, but that's all. Right. That just says, oh, they're nervous. But the reality is, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're nervous. Some people just will never pull the trigger.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's, I've been doing this for 17 years, 240 plus deals. To this day, I still get a little bit of apprehension when I pull the trigger on a deal, to this day. So that part doesn't go away. It's not like there's no risk. There's always risk in what we do. This is a business.
Yep.
There are only 2 outcomes to each project. You're going to make money or you're going to lose money. Right. And it's never pleasant, to lose money in any type of investing, but it is a reality. And therefore it's not for everybody. So it's not a question of fear. The fear is going to be there in any industry, any person who's an entrepreneur, who's investing, working 7 days a week, putting their own money into their deals. There's always the risk of loss. And that doesn't go away, even in a cool, sexy business that we're doing, right? But and that's what I mean. It's not for everyone. Some people are just not going to take that risk. They'd rather stay, in the cubicle and find their security there. And then they shouldn't be complaining, though. Yeah, right? True. You've got the opportunity. As I look at it, one of the things that motivates me is that I realize that we're not here for very long, David. And I think your audience, military members, have a more keen realization of that, than the average population. Is that, we in the military, right, we volunteer, and we sometimes 3-4 times volunteer, and we volunteer to put ourselves in harm's way. And so we're not a stranger to taking risks, right? So if you think about that kind of risk, that military men, that the brotherhood that we take or have taken, and in my case in the past, I don't take that risk anymore. But I mean, for heaven's sakes, you guys are volunteering to put your life on the line. Therefore, to take a risk where the worst possible outcome, the worst case scenario is that, okay, we're going to lose money.
Yeah.
It should be a really good open gate and a huge opportunity for military people who want to become millionaires. So, one more time, I'm a big fan of what you're doing, David. I wish that we had somebody like you when I was in the military. The closest we had to that was, I remember when I was here at Schofield, I was as a young officer, the richest guy in the battalion was a major who was single, right? No family, nothing to do. And he used to read the Wall Street Journal every morning, and he would invest in stocks, and good for him. But to me back then, that was such a foreign concept, and when I got out of the military, I was going to use my GI Bill to go to law school. And upon doing further research, I decided not to do that. But it took me a few years to find my way. And eventually I stumbled across the idea and learned about real estate investing, right? So what you're doing, David, you are a potential gold mine for people who have that interest, because you're a gatekeeper, so to speak, where you're able to show them, what we do. Because I wish that I would have found, and I'm not complaining about the way my life unfolded, from getting out of the military to where I am today. But I'll tell you, it would have been cool if I knew somebody like you who was pointing the way back then. Because it would have saved me several years of kind of stumbling around in the dark before I finally, finally found and discovered real estate investing.
Well, it means a lot. That's kind of my hope. I my first few years in the Marine Corps, I made all the normal mistakes, the Harley, the cars, the guns,
Right.
I invested in the TSP, the military's Roth 401k, but I never moved the funds out of the super safe account. And so I gained like 2% interest while all the other accounts were gaining 20% interest. And the other thing you mentioned, if your biggest risk is losing money, that's really not that big a risk. But the other thing that I always try to bring up to my service members is, especially the young ones, is if you're 20 years old and you make the worst financial decision investment, it just goes absolutely south and you lose everything. You still have a career bringing you a solid paycheck, and you're going to bounce back. You have time on your side.
Yes. Yeah. And, failure in our business is, like I said, you look at the worst case, you analyze risk, which is another thing I learned in the military. There was a point where I was a plans officer for a brigade. And my job was to always have a B plan in the tactical scenario. So if the enemy moved into this valley, I would have a plan. And that was my job. I would be in the operations center a few miles behind, enemy lines. And my job was just to write plans. If they did this, here's what we do. If they go this way, oh, okay, well, here's what we do then. We redeploy in this way, right? And, there were times where the colonel would come back to me and say, okay, they just did this. And I would say, here, Colonel, take this, run with it, go. And I'll start calling the battalions and helping them deploy. But it drilled into me the concept of always having a B plan, for everything. But, and as we analyze risk, you start with, okay, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen here? Right. And in the military, it's grit, right? We're looking at not only, the lives are on the line, but, for that of all your comrades too, not just ourselves. Whereas here, it's nothing. It's a walk in the park. You lose money, the worst case. And money is a renewable resource, unlike time. And that's why time is always more important than money. Your time, my time is more important than the money itself. Money is renewable, but the time is not. And one of the ways that I like to illustrate that is, imagine an hourglass, okay, right in front of you. Let's say a large hourglass where, you've got the sand in the upper cylinder that is slowly dropping down into the bottom cylinder, right? Now, hold that thought, that image in your mind. And let's say that we're going to take a cloth and we're going to cover up and hide the top cylinder. So you can't see the top cylinder. All you can see is the bottom cylinder, right, with the sand falling down into that. Does that make sense? Are you with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, and that is it. That's us. That's our lives, right? You've got sand falling down. We know at some point it's going to stop and it's over. But we don't know when that's going to be. It could be tomorrow. It could be this afternoon. It could be in 20 years from now, 40, 50, 60 years from now, right? So and I think if you think of it that way, right, we all have our 80 years plus or minus, right, the human lifespan. And that time, once you spend it, you can never get it back. So I think as we look at ourselves in the mirror each morning, and ask ourselves, what can I do to make the biggest impact today?
That's huge. I had never heard that hourglass analogy before, and that's amazing. I really, really, really like that concept.
I want to get a graphic of that where I can show it like on a slide or something like that, where it just falls, and we could, just to really help people get that visualization for people, because I think it's very real.
Yeah, I would be interested in. I have a friend. I'll see what I can do. I might be able to get you a graphic.
All right. Cool. I think it's a powerful reminder of how important, our time is, and that it's going to end. We can't get it back once we spend it. But money is completely different. And I think, money, we can always make it back. And we want to get to a point where, we're no longer working to make money, where it's coming in, automatically. And one of the great things about real estate is you analyze all of the different business opportunities that are out there for entrepreneurs. Real estate is amazing in that, number one, it can make people wealthy.
Yeah.
Whatever economic strata they are in right now, whether it's, middle class, working class, even poverty. I've trained a couple of homeless people. They can get to where they could get up in the top 10% or higher of all income earners through real estate, the wealth creation portion of it. And then when it comes time to get, for the passive income, right, money flow without us working at all, again, there's no better place than real estate, to do that.
Yeah.
Right. You do that through holding rental portfolios or even through private lending, which has become more and more popular, to get that passive income. So real estate is almost like it can provide everything that we need. So it is, and another thing about it is that whatever happens in the world, politically or economically, people will always need a place to live. Right. And once, as an investor, you've had the opportunity to go through up markets and down markets and go through a couple of cycles, you'll see and get more confidence that even in a down market, which we're already starting to see, some of these more hot markets in the country are starting to turn already. Yeah. It's still a good opportunity. We simply shift our strategy and we do more acquisitions. Right. It's easier to buy stuff, at that point.
It's all on sale.
Yeah. So the key to bridging all that is education. And that's what you're involved in. That's what I'm committed to. You and I are both committed to that, to that education. One of the common questions I get, David, from people who are kind of poking around, kicking the tires and wondering about real estate investing is, well, how much money do I need? I can't afford it. The median price of a single family home. It's a big thing, right?
That's the number one question or excuse.
I hear you. And I hear that a lot too. And when the median price of a home is about $800,000, it's intimidating for people. So I get a lot of people who won't cross over and take a shot in real estate investing because they have convinced themselves that, well, it's just too expensive. You just can't do it. But the thing is that you don't need money. You don't need to have money to do it. You need to have the financial intelligence. You need to have the know-how. And once you get that, no one can ever take that away from you, right? You can create a fortune, you can lose a fortune, but no one could ever take away your financial intelligence. And that's why, the education piece is so critical. It's vital. Because you can, once you know what to do, once you know the strategies, you'll be surprised that people will step up and invest in your projects. There are people out there looking to deploy funds into your house flips. I have for quite a while now. I have a waiting list of people who want to invest in my house flips. Where I have to tell them, sorry, I don't have anything right now, but I'll get back. Just hold on. It may be a few weeks, or maybe a week or so, or maybe a few weeks. But
and given the amount of the volume of deals that you do, that's huge. It's not you have a waiting list because you only have one deal. You have a waiting list. You're doing a ton.
And I put my money, a lot of my money I just reinvest into my company. But still, that said, a lot of my deals, I don't have a dime of my own money invested. Think about your ROI. What's your return? Your ROI when you have zero money in, and in 4 months, 5 months, we make boom, $80,000, $100,000 profit. What's your ROI? You said it. It's infinite.
Yeah.
But what are we leveraging in that case? OPM, yes, other people's money, but we're also leveraging our financial intelligence. And that is irreplaceable.
Yeah. So I always tell people that I kind of started I guess you could say a coaching program. I started I'm running a trial run for a coaching program. And
nice. Good.
One of the people I was talking to the other day, so I mentioned, long story short, there's this gentleman who owns 300-400 rental properties in my town, and he has not really been keeping up with everything. And he filed bankruptcy. It got denied. And there's some other extenuating circumstances, but I mean, long story short, people are knocking on the door for foreclosure for a large amount of properties, apartment complexes, everything. And so I sent a letter to him, hey, I don't know what your situation is, but if you need to sell or finance out, subject to whatever I can do to help, let me know. And one of my buddies was like, well, how are you going to be able to afford if he comes back? I'm like, well, if he comes back, given his situation, finding people to help with the affording isn't hard. It's just finding the good deal. And if you can find a good deal, no matter the market, finding people is not that hard.
Yes.
Finding money, people want to invest in good deals.
Right. That's a very good point. I like to say that as a real estate investor, whether it's day one, you're just starting, or whether you're a seasoned veteran that's been doing this for years, a multimillionaire, we have two priorities, and only two priorities, and that's finding deals and funding deals. And of the two of them, the one that's more important is, the one that you need to get. You may have one and not the other, right? But, when you find a good deal, there's always people who will step up and be willing to invest. There is a lot of money looking for us to find good deals, in the market right now. And that's actually increased over the past few years. We've seen the rates, for instance, of hard money that used to be like 18% are now down to like 7 and 8%, right? And that's a sign of the times. There is a lot of money. There's a lot of people out there looking to place money into our deals. So therefore, it's finding the deal. And finding deals, right, are two priorities, finding deals and funding deals. Finding deals is really the genesis of wealth creation. And if you become good at that, you will get rich. Despite, even if you suck at everything else, right? if you're good at finding deals and funding deals, you don't really have to be good at anything else. You could suck at everything else, and you're still going to be fine. That's how powerful it is. That's how powerful it is.
Absolutely. I'm gonna write that down. If you're good at finding deals, you will get rich.
You will get rich in spite of yourself. You can be a goofball on other things. You're still going to get rich.
And you might have fun doing it. Like I talked about Jen and I will drive around town looking at houses, sending postcards, and we have the time of our life. And I tell people that because driving for dollars, knocking on doors is not the most fun thing in the world, right? Cold calls. Nobody likes any of that. But if you find a buddy who's on the same page and you can turn it into like a contest, we will drive around in circles, banging on doors and knocking on doors and sending postcards and taking pictures with people in front of their house and whatever.
Right.
Just have so much fun.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, sometimes you find stuff that works out. Sometimes you don't. We've both done a little bit of wholesaling out here and been able to move the money back into passive investments or reinvest in, a camera for YouTube or whatever. Right. But it's fun. And that's the part that I just enjoy.
Yeah, good for you. And you can make it fun with just a little bit of creativity. I mean, in my earlier days, in driving for dollars, I used to take my wife with me, or I take my oldest boy with me, who at the time was, he might have been like 10, 12 years old. And I remember we would do it together. So we were getting good where my car had a sunroof, and he was big enough where he could stand up as I drove by and pulled over in the sunroof, through the sunroof, and snapped a picture of each ugly house, while I would, get the address. And we had a great time doing it. It was some good bonding. My wife got excited about it after I took her a couple times, and she then started doing it with her friends. They would get to Starbucks, they would go out, they would talk story, and they would do it. And, so it could be a social bonding event too. It just takes a little bit of, creativity, and you can make it, something that might otherwise seem mundane. It could be fun, and good that you're doing that.
Yep. It's fun. And then, like you said, one house, and it just replaced your entire income for the year potentially. So it's
right.
Pretty good return on your time, depending. And then as you get bigger and you're able to leverage that and outsource that, and there's all kinds of things. But we could get into the nitty gritty, but
Yeah.
eventually I'm not going to be able to talk to you for 3 hours today. So eventually I'm going to have to ask some questions. So I guess one that I would like to ask, is if you could give advice to like an 18, 19, 20-year-old, as far as, you only have a few moments in there, just whether it's financial or life advice, what would you say? What would you like to tell yourself back then?
I guess I mentioned this a little bit earlier. My only thing I would change, looking at my exit from the military and going in for that next career, the only thing I would change, knowing what I know now, is I would have gotten started in real estate investing a lot sooner. And I would have started the education process. And, at that time, there really wasn't, really forums to do that. You didn't have some of these good forums like Bigger Pockets. You didn't have this. Now we have a proliferation of all these TV shows, flipping houses. It wasn't a big deal back then. It would have been a great time to just get in and crush it a lot faster had I just known what to do or had somebody show me the way. So which is one of the reasons, what you're doing, David, with your program of from military to millionaire fills an important need. What I'm trying to do with my Honolulu Mentor program is filling that important need, and in doing it in such a way that it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It doesn't have to. I don't need to make a lot of money from my training program because I'm a very successful real estate investor that pays me more than enough. So my advice would be get an early start. Take a good look at real estate investing. And if it's not for you, fine, then move on, to something else. But it could change everything else. If real estate investing is something for you, it could change everything else. You may decide not to go to college, not to get the degree because you don't need. I was just reading something this week, and I think it was in the Wall Street Journal that or it might have been Forbes magazine, but that most billionaires, something like 65% of all billionaires do not even have a college degree. So if you latch onto a really good, business, and I'm not talking about something goofy like multi-level marketing or something like that. I'm talking about a legitimate, a real business that could make you wealthy in just a few short years. Real estate investing, other things could fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
You don't need to check the box. You don't need to climb it. For women, real estate investing is great because there's no glass ceiling that you find in certain industries. Women rock in real estate investing in certain aspects of what we do. They tend to be better than the guys. So I guess that would be my advice to everybody. You want to be an entrepreneur, take a look at real estate investing first. And if you pass on that, fine, then go start looking at other stuff too. But that should be your first stop because it is a true, vanquisher of the lower income, strata that, or even the middle class that a lot of people are stuck in. I mean, it is not good to be in the middle class.
No.
You're on an iceberg that's melting from both ends in the middle class. You're getting, pounded from both sides with taxation hits the middle class harder. Middle class is shrinking in a lot of places. People are either getting wealthy or they're not. They're becoming dependents, on government services. And Hawaii is a good microcosm of that too. Like I said earlier at the start of this podcast, that we have a median household income of about $67,000, and I couldn't go back into the workforce and take a W-2 job again. I would laugh when they said, as soon as I asked the question, well, what's the salary? I would have to bite my tongue. Like, really? You mean a whole freaking year to make 80,000? I could make that in a single house flip, so I'm kind of spoiled in that sense. But, and so I would advise people coming into this or considering this, people who are leaving the military, is to, check it out. check it out. It may not be for you, but it might be for you. And if it is, it's gonna be a life changer, not only for you, but for the people around you. You know, I have a lot of followers just because I post before and after pictures. People get excited over that stuff. You know, people love, right? Yeah, you know, people love watching all of these silly house flipping shows, because, you know, this is a business that if you're good at it, it's going to be a game changer for you. It's going to change your life. It's changed mine. It's changed the lives of many of my students. You know, a handful of them who you've met and who you know, David. It is truly a game changer.
Yeah.
God bless America. You know, God bless real estate investing. You know, where we can do something like that. You know,
and you know the other really cool thing about the entrepreneur. So, entrepreneurship is, I guess not historically, but it's lonely, right? People talk about, like, you hear all these entrepreneurs talk about how lonely they were building their business and how they got to be like, real estate's not like that. It is like, it does not matter what your niche is. If you are in real estate and you're doing your own entrepreneurial thing, you will hit it off with like everybody else in real estate investing. That's why these meetups are so fun, because everybody's just, it's like a big reunion of people, even if you've never met. And I love that.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to network with like-minded people. You know, there's a synchronization there. It's in a way it's hard to explain, you know, but it's good to be around people who kind of think alike, you know.
Yeah, I would be curious to ask, since you run probably the best meetup I've been to, what do you think makes a good meetup? Like what is it that you do that makes yours so much fun? Because I enjoy hosting one, but it's not nearly as good as yours.
Thank you. One of the things you might know that I did differently is I wanted to appeal to a niche of actual investors. Most of and the advice I would give to people seeking is do some research. There are too many groups, unfortunately, out there where there's a lot of talk going on, but there's not actually a lot of people that are, they're actually doing stuff. And when I was forming this group, REI Mastermind, about 6 years ago, I sat down with a friend of mine who's also he's a top investor, wealthy guy. And he said something. I asked him, hey, you want to be part of this with me? And he said something that really impacted me and would impact what I did with this group. And he said, Michael, if you're the smartest guy in the room, what you really need to do is find another room so you could learn too. And he said, I give a lot and I love giving, but I want a group where I could learn something too, where I will grow also. And that impacted me too. And a lot of the groups that you're going to find are just a group of beginners. It's the one-eyed man leading the blind. And there's a danger, I think, because they'll adopt a certain strategy or two, or they'll promote certain strategies that are just not on track with what really works here. So when we formed REI Mastermind, we said, well, look, why don't we just set a group where it's not for people who've never done a deal, not for the wannabes. This will be a group that appeals to people who have already done at least one deal, right? And where we can all come, we can put deals together, we can learn from each other, even if they did one deal and they lost money. Hey, there's still something we can learn. I'm sure there's some good, valuable takeaways, from that deal where the person lost money that they could share, right? So that is why I think, this group is successful, is because it appeals. If you are an experienced investor and and all you had, this was the situation for the experienced guys. The only thing available, there were a couple of groups around, but they were all, people who didn't know anything, so fine to attend once in a while and give back, right? But those investors are not really learning anything, from other investors, right? So we get a lot of comments from people who say, hey, look, okay, I see what you're doing. I haven't done a deal yet, but I want to learn. And I'm smart enough to figure out that some of these other groups, these other RIA groups, they're just, a well-crafted sales funnel. Where I go in, they're going to sell me stuff. They're going to, or get me involved in something that is not really going to help me as an investor. And so another piece of advice I would give to someone who's just starting out is find a real investor, someone who's actually doing deals in your local market, and see if you can get them to take you under their wing. And I do that on occasion, where I'll set up, where we'll have internships available. There's such a demand for that, to the point where I can't just take in an intern. It's usually when we have an open position, we'll get a bunch of people who apply. And so it becomes competitive, where we end up taking the people who are the most motivated or show the most potential, right? But my advice would be, find something of value that you can offer to that investor. You don't just go in and say, help me, teach me, without offering anything in return. Now, if you do that, yeah, you may eventually find someone who's willing, because they like you or see something in you. But much better, your chances are much better to get an experienced investor to take you under their wing if you can come and offer and bring something to the table that they need. And it's not terribly difficult. No. You can help them do some marketing, help them chronicle one of their house flips by taking snapshots and then making videos for them, or there's a lot of things that you can do. Without being an experienced investor, where you can come and help an experienced investor and get them to take you under their wing.
And then you learn from them, which is way
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Michael, let's see. One of the last few questions here. What makes the Michael Mazzella method of investing unique or successful? I never know what I'm going to get with that one, so I like asking it.
It's a very good question, and I think when somebody wants to learn, that should be the first question that they ask. And the answer to your question is that it works. It works in this market. The blueprint that I give to my students, there are a lot of if you look at who are the top investors in this market right now, and a good bunch of them are graduates of my mentor course. Is what I do. I don't teach. There's so much information out there, and it's hard to discern what's valuable, what is baloney that doesn't work, or what's just a marginal strategy. And it doesn't have to even be a bad strategy. If the strategy is just off center, just a little bit, that is enough to take you off course, and you're not going to be successful. So, I used to be a national mentor for the Rich Dad Company and Wealth Intelligence Academy. And I learned, I went to teach, but I actually learned so much from some of the best and brightest other mentors, a lot of whom are still my friends. There's so much to learn. There's so much information out there. But over the years, I was able to refine, filter out that information and refine what really works in our local market. And that's why, my graduates are actually doing very well, here too. So.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. I've run into quite a few of them, and I have yet to meet somebody that I have not been impressed by who's been through your course. So, in fact, I myself have looked into coming through your program, and I'm not going to say that I won't do it here in the near future. We shall see. I think I've been off island more than I know what to do with here lately, so I haven't really been around, but I fully intend to. All right, so let's see. I always like to ask this. What is one resource, book, course, website, and I see that you've got your book back there. So if you want to plug your book, feel free. But what is one resource you would recommend to anyone getting started in real estate or in investing in general?
Just yesterday, I have a friend that I've known for many, many years, but she lives in Japan. And, she comes here from time to time, and she loves to shadow me when she's here. And, I want to see a day in the life of a real estate investor. She asked me, what can I do? I want to start right now, Michael, but I'm in Japan. I can't attend your course. I can't come here, stay here to attend your course. What can I do? And I advised, this was just yesterday, I told her, get on biggerpockets.com and just start learning, start listening to some of the podcasts. Now, it's not every one of them, they're not 100% all good, but most of them are. And I think the ratio of good information to the marginal stuff that I talked about is very good on Bigger Pockets. So by and large, it's a great way for somebody to learn on the go. And so that would be my advice for somebody who cannot take my course. I'm gonna guarantee your success if you unfold if you stick to the blueprint that I give you. I'll guarantee your success. But short of that, for someone who can't afford to take my course, or for one reason or another cannot, I would tell them, get on Bigger Pockets, learn all you can from there, and sometimes that's enough. For some people, real trigger pullers, or sometimes able to just read a good book, listen to a few podcasts, and start executing. Most people cannot. Most people, and that's where the mentorship comes in, where I'm looking over them. We send out, in my course, on the second day, we send out offers. We're contacting owners of off-market properties. People would not do that on their own, but they're doing it, right? I make them do all the stuff that they need to do to be successful, and not just learning about, but actually doing it. Because I know, as a trainer, I know that if they just sat through my course and took notes during the entire intensive and just took notes with the plan, well, I'll execute starting next week, most of them will fail.
Yeah.
Most of them will, if they wait, like I said, 3 days or 4 days, they will fail. Okay. So we start executing on the second day of the course. Sometimes they're sending out offers. I haven't even taught them how to analyze deals yet. And they say, what do I say? Well, good. If you're a little scared, then good. You're in the right place. That means you're growing right now. But don't worry, I got your back. I still have the rest of the week to teach you and fill in all the pukas, all the holes in your knowledge. At this point, action is more important than knowledge. I got your back on the knowledge. I've got time to teach you all of that stuff in the course. But for right now, we're getting offers out on the street, a whole bunch of them,
Yeah,
and we go from there. So
that's huge. I love it. All right. So I think we're going to have to wrap this up. But Michael, where can people get a hold of you? I know we've talked about your course, but where's the best way for people to reach you?
I'm very reachable through Facebook. I have a personal page, which is mostly posts about my family, but I have a business page, and it's called Michael Mazzella's Page on Facebook. And that's where I post, and I meet a lot of people that way. Michael Mazzella's Page on Facebook. And I think it's Hawaii House Flipper. So Facebook.com/Hawaii House Flipper, I believe. But you could just search my name, Michael Mazzella, 2 Z's and 2 L's. And you can find me on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Just search Honolulu Mentor, and you'll find my Instagram posts there, and we can communicate that way too.
Awesome. Michael, I really, really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your. What's really cool is that this is the first time I've filmed a podcast, other than the time there was someone in my living room, where I've been in the same time zone. I've been able to say, thanks for meeting with me on your lunch break. Normally it's like 4 o'clock in the morning over here.
Right.
I'm trying to record with someone on their lunch break. So
Yeah,
I
that's
really
nice.
appreciate it. This has been amazing. And I know that our listeners are going to get some just huge amount of content out of this.
Well, thank you, David, for having me. Again, I love what you're doing. If you want me to come back sometime and talk about a specific topic or teach something, I'm happy to do it because I'm a big fan of what you're doing, David. I wish someone did that for me when I was in the military. So anything I could do to help out, David, I'm there.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, Michael. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks for having me. Aloha.
Aloha. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit militarytomillionaire.com/podcast. Subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we would love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.